bombardment on the Gaza Strip tonight, employing missiles fired from warplanes and artillery. Israeli officials said tonight we start the payback for the Hamas attack. The barrage came as Israeli leaders were deliberating on how to conduct a ground invasion of Gaza with the aim of removing Hamas from power, and as diplomats conducted back-channel negotiations aimed at freeing some of the 229 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. The lockdown is lifted in Lewiston, Maine, as the manhunt for Robert Card, a 49-year-old white man and Army reservist who has been previously committed to a mental health facility. Police officers were searching a river and several properties today for the gunman who killed 18 people. The names of those tragically killed by the assailant have been released. Now rebranded as X, the site, formerly known as Twitter, has experienced a surge in racist, anti-Semitic, and other hateful speech. Under Elon Musk's watch, millions of people have been exposed to misinformation about climate change, race, and politics. Foreign governments and operatives from Russia to China to Hamas have spread divisive propaganda with little or no regulation or interference. House Speaker GOP Congressman Mike Johnson, in his first national television interview since winning the Speaker's gavel, offered condolences to the victims of the mass killing Wednesday night in Lewiston, Maine. This is what the Speaker had to say. The end of the day, it's the problem. It's the human heart. It's not guns. It's not the weapons. At the end of the day, we have to protect the right of the citizens to protect themselves, and that's the Second Amendment. And that's why our party stands so strongly for that. Those are the words of the new GOP Speaker of the House. Donald Trump and 3 of his adult children are scheduled to testify between November 1st and November 6th in the $250 million civil fraud case that alleges years of financial misconduct by the Trump Organization and those who ran it. The announcement of the Trump family's upcoming court appearances was made today after the New York Supreme Court ruled that Ivanka Trump, who is no longer a named defendant in the case, must testify. Ivanka's testimony was requested by subpoena by the New York Attorney General Letitia James. Representative Dean Phillips from Minnesota, a Democrat, has announced a long-shot primary challenge to President Biden in the 2024 presidential election. The 3-term congressman and business owner argues that Biden has an electability problem and should pass the torch to a younger fellow Democrat. Now, House Democrats say they are simply baffled by their colleague and his decision to run against popular President Joe Biden, or at least popular amongst Democrats. The mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, blamed a communication failure for a botched investigation that kept a woman and her family from learning that her missing son had been killed by a police car and buried in a pauper's field. The mayor of Jackson made his first public comments yesterday about the case in his annual State of the City speech. The mayor admitted mistakes and promised changes, but also said there were no indications of police misconduct or malicious intent against the dead man, Dexter Wade, or his family. The donor backlash at the University of Pennsylvania and uproar at Harvard University over Israel and Palestine highlight how big donations often come with demands for changes to university policy and politics. The backlash has raised questions about the influence big donors wield and pressure those donors may exert over leadership, hiring decisions, and academic affairs. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is Friday, and typically my co-host, Avi Bernard, would be on the mic, but Avi is off today, and I'm holding it down on this Friday. And in this hour for our breaking and trending news, I'm joined by two recurring experts, Christopher Walton, who's the former chair of the Milwaukee Democratic Party and a Democratic strategist, and Kennedy Sessions is joining us again today. She is a Houston area Metro reporter for crime. And in hour two, that's the hour where we go deep and we dig behind the headlines. We talk about those stories that everyone is talking about, stories that have big impact, stories that really impact the lives of everyday people. And today, the story that everyone is talking about and has been talking about for almost 2 weeks now is the Israeli-Palestinian war. We did a show on the war with two historians last week. And this week, we are looking at the question of, is this war between the Israelis and Palestinians a war that seems to have been going on for decades? Is it about land or is it about religion? We have one of the nation's leading experts on religion, conflict, and peace studies from the University of Notre Dame, who's going to join us in hour two to help us understand from a religious standpoint, the Jewish and Palestinian war. Lots of folks have been talking about Zionist and efforts by the Jewish or the Israelites to Judicize the Palestinians in that region. So we're going to get educated, get a lot smarter about the conflict that has really occupied the news for the last 2 weeks. But before I bring on my guests, here's what I'm thinking in real time. I don't know about you, but the statement from the new GOP Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, about the 18 innocent victims in Maine who were just ruthlessly and tragically killed Wednesday night. I couldn't even believe it when I heard him say that we just needed to pray more, and this was a matter of the heart, not a matter of guns, and that his party stands for protecting the Second Amendment. It's just so frustrating, so hypocritical and nauseating that when we have these mass shootings, and my God, we seem to have one seemingly every other day in this country, we hear the same thing from Republicans like Mike Johnson, who say ridiculous things like guns don't kill people, people kill people. Well, yeah, the people with the guns kill people. Such gaslighting that they engage in. And I can't even imagine what the victims' families feel when they see these politicians go on national television talking about praying for them. Yes, prayer is important if you believe in prayer, but the people we send to Congress and we send to the U.S. Senate, we want them to do more than pray. If we want prayer, we'll go to our local churches, our synagogues, we'll go talk to the people who's made a career out of praying for people. We don't want to hear the Speaker of the GOP offer prayers and yet doesn't mention what his job is, which is legislation and legislating, those things in this country that could keep our streets safer. And as I was reading about Mike Johnson's statement, I came across a story of a young Black kid, 13-year-old. His name is Deshaun DeBose. He was shot outside a roller skating rink in Atlanta. A fight broke out, and somehow, guns were pulled out, guns were fired, and here this kid, this 13-year-old, very vibrant, beloved young boy was shot, murdered. And I was just reading his mother, his sister, his family. He's going to turn 14, or he would have turned 14 this November. And they were just talking about how they are going to get through the holidays knowing that their baby, this mom, has lost her son, the sister's lost her brother. We don't hear a lot about those kinds of shootings that happen every day in neighborhoods across this country, innocent kids who are murdered because, again, of no fault of their own. So when you look at the mass shooting like we saw in Maine, you look at individual shootings like, little or young Deshaun DeBose, it's just staggering how many people are killed in this country by gun violence. And then to have the leader of the Republican Party, the Speaker of all of Congress, talk about praying rather than legislating. And, the statistic is so clear. We've all heard it. We've all seen it. More people are killed in this country by gun violence than by car accidents. Gun violence is an epidemic. We know it's an epidemic. The scientists have told us that. The researchers have told us that. We know that we can do something about it. The scientists and the researchers and the sensible and reasonable elected officials and policymakers have told us we can do something about this gun violence. We, as a country, are refusing. We are refusing to do that which would save the lives of those 18 people so ruthlessly murdered in Maine, that would save the life of 13-year-old Deshaun DeBose, whose life was taken way too soon. We don't know what it's going to take to cause this nation to come to grips with we need more than prayers in moments like this. But I do know those of us who are sick and tired of elected officials who just offer prayers, there is something we can do, and it's called vote. And we can vote them out of office, and we can vote for those elected officials who want to go to Washington and go to state houses around this country and do something, do that which they have been elected to do, and that is legislate guns in this country. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like your style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities, and sports figures, elected leaders, and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Get up. Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the.
We are back and we are tracking today's trending and breaking news with Christopher Walton and Kennedy Sessions. Let's talk about the new Speaker of the House. He says that the murders that we witnessed in Maine and the gun violence that we see on the streets of America every day is because of the human heart. He says that it's not guns, it's not policies around guns, is that somehow we have to pray and change men and women's human hearts. The White House, thankfully, shot back and, really blasted him and rejected the offensive accusation that gun crime is uniquely high in the U.S. because of Americans' hearts. The Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates said in a statement, he went on to say that gun crime is uniquely high in the U.S. because congressional Republicans have spent decades choosing the gun industry's lobbyists over the lives of innocent Americans. Gun violence is now the main reason that American children's hearts stop beating. Not cancer, not car accidents. It's gun violence. I don't know, Kennedy, if you saw Mike Johnson when he was making what he thought, I guess, was some kind of profound statement, and he was comforting the family members of those who were killed in that tragedy that happened in Maine on Wednesday. But how does it strike you that that's one of the first things that this Speaker of the House had to opine on, and the best he could come up with is gun violence is high because of our hearts?
Yeah, it gives you a clue to how he plans to do nothing about gun legislation in his time as House Speaker. And it obviously resonates with their base. It's kind of singing the same song that they have been saying for a very long time. But, we know that a lot of victims in this case and their families aren't looking for thoughts and prayers anymore. And shooting after shooting, whether it's a mass shooting or kind of like how you were talking about earlier with just violent crime happening or gun violence happening in neighborhoods across the country, Americans are sick and tired of seeing this repeatedly over and over and over again. And so I think he thought that was a slam dunk. And obviously, people are like blocking it very quickly because people want actual legislation. We're tired of guns and prayers, thoughts and prayers. We have priests for that. We have popes for that. We have a lot of people in religious power who's that's their job to do. And at this point, as politicians, they're just pushing their accountability away.
Yeah, Chris, he went on to say, this is not the time. He said all of this on an interview on Fox News with Sean Hannity. Mike Johnson, that is, said, this is not the time to be talking about legislation. Every time we have one of these mass shootings, we hear this from Republican lawmakers. Now is not the time. Now is not the time. When is it going to be time to acknowledge that we have an issue with guns in this country? And as I said, and that's the press secretary for the White House said, our kids die more from gun violence than they do from cancer and car accidents. Do you ever see the Republicans, standing up to the gun lobbyists and acknowledging that we can do something about all of these people that we just watch get get gunned down in their own communities?
Absolutely. And frankly, the time when we should have done something was back in 1999 when we had that first major mass shooting over in Colorado. That was the time we should have done something then. The amount and the rapidity that these things keep happening, we have to stand up and do something. We can't keep allowing this to happen. And the Republicans have shown us time and again that they're not going to do, per usual, anything to protect the American people. They're going to protect their bottom line, and they're going to protect the gun industry. When all those little kids got killed in Newtown and nothing happened, that was the point of no return. And this was, it's always maybe if it was these people, these were. It's
been everybody now, Latinos, white, black. It's everybody.
Exactly. And they did nothing. We got a bill passed in the last Congress that was Democratic controlled might I add. But the Republicans are not going to do anything. They're not going to put in any effort behind this. And we have to name them and make it very plain for people to understand. Democrats support an assault weapons ban. Democrats support gun measures that will actually limit the amount of guns being available on our streets. We support universal background checks. We support an assault weapons ban. We support actual legislation making sure that there are people who are licensed to have these weapons of war. And we also support making sure these weapons of war aren't on the ground, but Republicans do not. And the people need to hold them accountable.
You know, one of the things I'm sitting here thinking, the attorney generals have been very effective in filing lawsuits against big tobacco companies. They went after the big opioid companies. They just filed, a bipartisan group of attorney generals have filed lawsuits against Facebook, Instagram, the big social media platforms, claiming that, they purposely, attract kids and that they're impacting kids' mental health. I wish those same attorney generals would come together and start suing some of these big gun manufacturers, because, they have been incredibly effective in changing policies and changing the way these big companies operate because of these, massive settlements that these companies have had to enter into. I have a family friend whose daughter, husband, she was trying to leave her husband, domestic violence situation. He woke her up, said something, and literally blew his brains out in front of her. And you can imagine the trauma she's experiencing, but she's suing the manufacturer, the dealer that sold her husband the gun because he had mental health issues. And in the state where they live, he should not have had access to a gun. And I'm so glad that she's been able to muster the courage to do this in the midst of this tragedy. And, lawsuits don't solve all problems. They're not perfect, but it is one way we've seen in this country to cause these corporations to change the way that they operate. So I hope that we see some of these Democratic AGs taking the lead and really trying to bust this gun lobbyists, gun manufacturing, because these assault weapons that should be used in war that are on the streets killing innocent people. It's just really too much. Let's stick with Mike Johnson, Kennedy. He's going to have a problem. He's got all kinds of baggage that we're now learning about, statements he's made about the replacement theory, really racist theories, criminalizing same-sex marriages. But it seems like in his first interview with Fox News, Sean Hannity, he's trying to walk back some of those statements. And one of those statements he's trying to walk back on is aid to the Ukrainians. He voted against that aid when he wasn't the speaker. And in the interview with Sean Hannity, he didn't rule that out. J.D. Vance, Republican, hardliner in the Senate, has already criticized him. Mike is going to find himself in the same situation Kevin McCarthy was in, trying to bring all these disparate factions together and hold them together before one person makes a resolution or a vote to oust him. How does he do it, given the positions he's taken in the past, positions that will not be effective if he takes them as the leader of the House?
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be fun to watch. It's really interesting too, as well, because not only has he walking back on that, but he also walked back some comments that he said about same-sex marriages. Obviously, he's also from Louisiana, a very, very strict state on abortion rights. And so when you look at how he's going to have a difficult job like Kevin McCarthy had, he's going to try to make everybody happy while at the same time not sticking with his own policies that he used to in the past. And so, yeah, he has his work cut out for him. I think also that note about his thoughts and prayers speech, a lot of Republicans as well have had issues with it, and Democrats. So Mike has his work cut out for him, and I don't think he's going to be there very long, honestly.
What do you think, Chris? He cannot hold all of these factions in the Republican Party. The Freedom Caucus already They are a hard no on Ukraine aid. There's a group, I'm reading another article on the Hill. It's a group of Republicans that want a farm bill passed. But the problem with the farm bill is that it has SNAP benefits in it. And we know that Republicans want hard line rules about people having to work before they can get SNAP benefits. That's another bill that's highly controversial because the Freedom Caucus is saying no / we want smaller government. And the farm bill would give, millions, if not billions of dollars to farmers. So how is Mike going to work on all of these big policy issues where the Republicans are particularly divided on?
I don't know, but I look forward to watching them fail at doing it. You know me, I do not make it an example of giving Republicans ideas on how to be, actual governing partners. I love to see them fail. But the problem that we're going to run into is that we have a Christian nationalist as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Him and his black son that now has been found out not to be his black son, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We have a lot of things we're going to have to work on in this nation, and the Republicans are going to have to figure out what they're going to do. Do they actually want to be a governing party or not? And the American voter is going to have to decide, do you actually want to be governed and have somebody actually give you an example in leadership, or do you want to be in this constant mess with the Republican Party?
Yeah, when we come forward, we want to talk about Dean Phillips. He's decided that Joe Biden is too old and that he should pass the mantle to a younger Democrat, someone like him. And the Israelis are on a mission. They say they are going to take Hamas out. Public opinion, though, seems to be saying something else about these attacks on the Palestinians. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Race, culture wars, political turf battles, criminal justice and injustice, the courts. These are the conversations you won't hear elsewhere. My guests are leading journalists, celebrities and sports figures, elected leaders and influencers. They aren't afraid to get into it and say the quiet part out loud. With Areva Martin in real time, your commute just became the most engaging part of your day. Tune in weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. or find us on YouTube. Areva Martin in real time, when you want it straight, no chaser.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Kick off the brand new flavor in your head. Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
We boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone.
We are back, and Chris Walton and Kennedy Sessions are joining me in this hour. We're talking about today's breaking and trending news, and in hour two, we're going to talk to a expert on not just the Israeli-Palestinian crisis, but on the role that religion plays in that crisis, asking the question, is this decades-long fight about land or about religion? Make sure you stick around for hour two. And speaking of that crisis, Chris, it looks like Biden has a problem. He was getting high praise pretty much early on from everyone in the country, majority of people, not everyone, but the majority, about the way he was handling the Hamas attack on Israel. Israel is one of the most important allies to the United States in the Middle East. So everybody expected that the U.S. would support Israel. Now, however, seems like public opinion may be turning against Israel. We see the UN has called for a ceasefire. The UN has used pretty strong language in saying that you can't look at the attack in isolation or in a vacuum. You have to look at the way that the Israelis have treated the Palestinians over years and decades. That caused the Israelis to call for the resignation of the UN Secretary General. And now lots of Palestinian lawmakers and influencers are coming out saying, this Palestinian Americans, Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, saying that Joe Biden doesn't value them, that he is sending billions of dollars to Israel for Israel to continue to not just go after Hamas, but to bomb and literally kill innocent women, children, and families. They're saying over 2,600 innocent children have already been killed. And we know tonight, Israelis said, we're going all in and we're getting revenge. What does Joe Biden do? And does he stand to lose not just the Muslim community of people in America, but also a lot of African Americans who align with Palestinians, see them as marginalized people who've been oppressed in the same way that Blacks have been oppressed in the U.S.?
That's a good question. Honestly, and when you look at things like foreign policy, and especially the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there is no black and white in this situation. It is shades of gray. It's really, the administration has been recently calling for a pause to get more humanitarian aid, to get more fuel and stuff into the Gaza Strip, to get to the people who are actually not the problem. This is not a Israeli versus Palestinian fight. This is an Israel versus Hamas fight. Hamas is who attacked Israel. And it needs to be made very clear. And it shouldn't become a Jewish versus Palestinian thing, because that's not what it is. This is literally not what that is. And so when you get into the situation where, of course, Israel is one of our greatest strategic partners in that region, we are going to stand by Israel, and Israel definitely has the right to defend itself. But the ways you go about that says a lot. The president has been very clear. He has also warned Prime Minister Netanyahu that, look at the mistakes that we made in Iraq. Look at the ways that, this could be a really bad situation really easily, because you can hit in an area that tightly packed, you can hit a Hamas headquarters and knock out a whole elementary school because they're so tightly packed in there, which is goes into the problems that, exist in the whole situation between Israel and Palestine. The Gaza Strip area of Palestine is very much so locked in, and it is a prison camp. It really will look like that. And as they're looking and doing the whole shock and awe campaign, this is giving really reminders of 2003 when Bush invaded Iraq. This is not going to end well, and you're only going to make more enemies. So I support what the administration is doing. I think there should be a pause in this activities. They should seriously consider it, what they're doing, maybe more strategic special operations directly that are surgical, going directly at Hamas, but do not just take a vast swipe at the Gaza Strip, because you're only going to create more enemies.
Yeah, Kennedy, I hear Chris. Very good advice, but doesn't seem like Israel's listening. Tonight in particular, the Israeli leadership is saying tonight we get our revenge. They're using words like revenge. Obviously, that's a word that comes out of emotion. And you're right. They have a right to defend themselves. They have a right to respond to the attack by Hamas. Kennedy, you're on the ground there in Texas. A lot of Black folks have always felt kinship with the Palestinians for some of the reasons that Chris just articulated. Might Biden start to lose Black voters? We saw the Squad refuse to vote for aid to Israel, and they're calling for a two-state solution. They're calling for a ceasefire. And when I think it was Blinken was asked about a ceasefire, he said, no, it's not time. Israel has a right to, try to annihilate Hamas. What do you think this means for a lot of Black voters?
I think Biden is going to have an issue with Black voters, voters in color in general, but also young voters, and even some white voters who are witnessing, and global leaders have called this a genocide. Before this attack with Hamas, Gaza was called an open-air prison because they were occupied by Israel and have for years been subjugated to attacks by Israeli defense forces. So I think when you talk about something like collective punishment, by the rules of the global sphere, it's called a war crime, and the USA is funding it. So I think when we talk about the administration and how they've been going about it, in the beginning, it seemed like everything was hunky-dory and okay, because for the media to completely say, well, they're defending themselves, this is a Hamas attack, et cetera, et cetera. But after people started to educate themselves about what was going on in Palestine for all of these years and the attacks that the Palestinians have been subjugated to, and realizing that children are being bombed, killed, incinerated by these bombs that are going off in different hospitals, we see that Israel, their priority is not to get hostages. If there are hostages in these different hospitals and schools and all these different places, you can't bomb an entire school. That the two don't go together. So I think that Biden continuing to fund what people are witnessing right now, which is more and more children getting killed, mothers, innocent people, it's not a good look, and it's really heartening and sad and disgusting. I also want to note that from the day this happened, from October 7th, and this happened, Israel decided to cut off water, cut off food, cut off humanitarian aid after neighboring countries said, we're here to help, but we need that help, and Israel said no. So Israel from the beginning has not had a good I think, hasn't had good intentions of helping the innocent Palestinians. Obviously, they are well in their right to fight back against Hamas for that terrible attack, but you can't enact collective punishment on a group of people. It is a war crime.
You said something really important, Chris, and she talked about young people. So young college students, we've seen how they've been responding to this. They don't have the same commitment to Israel that I think older Democrats, they don't, they're not wed to, the ally, the strongest ally, those arguments that are made. These young voters, 18 to 25, they grew up in the era of protest. They grew up in the era of, civil unrest, and they speak the language of Black Lives Matter in a lot of cases. How is the Democratic Party going to convince these young people that it's okay to support our greatest ally in the Middle East when they are simultaneously watching babies, families who are starving, drinking toilet water? I mean, you and I, we've been around, we hold our nose and vote, but younger people tend to be more visceral. And I don't know if you're going to be able to convince them that this is okay and they should still vote for the Democratic Party. I don't think they're going to vote for Trump, but maybe they're not going to vote at all.
And that's a big concern, too, that they won't vote at all. Because definitely when you look at the alternative, it's not a great alternative coming out of the Trump campaign. Donald Trump is literally the originator of the Muslim ban. He has already said that if he was president right now, he would be, no Palestinian refugees are allowed in the United States. No Palestinians will be getting aid from the United States. Don't compare Joe Biden to the Almighty. Compare it to the alternative. He's not running against God. He's running against Trump. And Donald Trump is a vast.
Right. And that's logic. But young voters, they aren't, love them, smart. I'm not trying to malign them, but not always, looking at what this very smart statement you just said about comparing Joe Biden to the Almighty versus the alternative. When we come forward, we want to talk about that. And there's a Democrat called Dean Phillips that says he might be the alternative. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
There's a new sheriff in town.
All right, I'm Dr. Corte, and starting September 18th, I couldn't be more thrilled than invite you to join us for the launch of A More Perfect Union, weekdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific Time, that's 4 to 5 p.m. Eastern. A More Perfect Union promises to deliver national news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. As KBLA Talk 1580's chief national political analyst, every day you can expect your daily dose of political news of consequence. If you're looking to be engaged, enlightened, and empowered to be a part of the solution to issues related to national politics, elections, identity, culture change, and social justice, A More Perfect Union was designed for you. This daily political affairs show will feature notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and ordinary people motivated to do their part to reach beyond today's divisions, to make sense out of news of the day, and offer us all a chance to build a more perfect union. Come on and join me.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Okay, Chris, you say that voters should not compare Joe Biden to the almighty, but rather to the alternative. Dean Phillips, a Democrat from Minnesota, says he's the alternative. Dean is 54 years old. He is the fifth richest member of the House of Representatives. He has a net worth of $123 million. He doesn't disagree with Joe Biden on much because he's voted 100% for all of the bills that Joe Biden has supported. We know that Dean is a liquor heir. He's a gelato prince. He's the step-grandson of the advice columnist Dear Abby. And he has Steve Schmidt as his campaign manager. And Steve, as we know, is a Republican operative that introduced the world to Sarah Palin when she was put on the GOP party to run with John McCain to be the vice president. So what do you make of this super wealthy congressman teaming up with a Republican operative to challenge Joe Biden, not because he disagrees with anything that he's doing, but just because he feels like Joe Biden is too old?
You know, honestly, I'm looking forward to Dean's replacement in the House. Very good friend of mine, chair of the Midwest for the DNC, Ron Harris. Looking forward to seeing what he's going to do when he replaces Dean Phillips. But to talk about this campaign, what is the purpose? He already missed the filing deadline in the Nevada primary, which is the first in the West primary. He's going to run in New Hampshire, which is not going to be a state, basically, in the primary because they're going to jump the line. The first state is South Carolina, and he's not going to beat Joe Biden in South Carolina. So
he'll probably win in New Hampshire because Joe Biden won't be on the ballot in New Hampshire.
So it's not even a campaign. So it's like, what are you doing here? What's the purpose you're trying to prove? This is a vanity project at its best. And at worst, this is a problem that will cause the president to have to actually, waste money winning the nomination again when he already has it, as opposed to building his money up, stocking it up, and preparing for the real fight next year.
Go ahead, Kenny, you have a question?
No, I was just saying, does he already have the nomination?
It's basically locked up at this point. Incumbent presidents don't usually get challenged from within the party. President Obama didn't face a primary challenge in 2012. That guy didn't face one in 2020. George W. Bush didn't face one in 2004. Bill Clinton in 96. You can really go back in time and see the moments where there has been an inter-party challenger. It's never really that serious. There won't be any debates. There won't be any wild card, CNN town halls or anything like that. He's just running to run. And when you're running to run, not to actually be president, but just to damage somebody else from it, you're going to cause a problem. Joe Biden has done an amazing job as president of the United States. Yes, he is not the youngest man to ever be president. We understand that. It's been proven time and again. But what he has done is shown that with age comes experience. This is a man who has gotten the first piece of legislation from guns passed since the 1990s. He passed and codified marriage equality and racial marriage equality in the law. He got $1 trillion transportation infrastructure bill passed, which the last guy kept saying he was going to do, but never did. He got so many things passed, including adding more money in for.
And Chris doesn't agree with any of that. Dean agrees on policy that Joe Biden has been phenomenal. He just says he's too. He says he's too old. Let me ask you this though. Think about this, Chris and Kennedy. It's an article today in the Wall Street Journal, so take it for what it's worth. And they say Biden's problem isn't Biden's age, it's the vice president. It seems like we had this period where our vice president was starting to get some positive press. Things were turning around in the media. But recently, last 4 weeks or so, we've had all these hit pieces out on her. What do you think is driving these hit pieces? Now, this is literally out today, the 27th, saying that Biden might have a shot if he dumps Kamala Harris. And this is, again, a piece written by a guy named Holman Jenkins for the Wall Street Journal.
You want to take this one, or I want to take this one, Kennedy?
Go ahead. Jump in, Kennedy, and then I'll get your opinion, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Phillips, just to add that point. But I think what he's talking about is really important in terms of the Democratic Party is coming into a problem of age and how the party goes next. I don't think anybody's debating that Joe Biden hasn't done a pretty good job as president, pushing a lot of Democratic priorities that I think are really important. But I think he is hitting on a note that Biden is old, not going to age him at that. But, what's next? We can't just keep looking at, well, he's old, so, what are we going to do? Or he's old, he doesn't understand. He's obviously shown he's known some things, but it seems like the Democratic Party is at a standstill to kind of see what's next. And I thought that Vice President Kamala Harris was in that vein in terms of just procession in the Democratic Party. And I don't think he needs to drop her. I think his poll numbers are doing fine with her on the ticket with him. And I think she's also been doing fine. But I do think that there needs to be a real conversation about what happens next in the Democratic Party and whether.
Well, when you say next, if you talk about 28, it's a whole line of young people from Westmore to Gavin Newsom that say they got next. So what do you mean when you say next?
I think, but even them, they're still considered the new school or, the new age of the Democratic Party, but they still also do agree with Joe Biden and a lot of his, I guess you could say.
Well, you're not going to be president. You're not going to be the Democratic nominee if you bash the incumbent. That's just how politics work. That's what Chris is saying. Dean is toast. And if Westmore or Gavin Newsom ever want to be president, you got to stay the party line. You can't, break from the party because the party won't support you when you run, and you can't win without the party. So,
sure. I think also, though, you don't have to necessarily bash them to not, 100% agree with them.
But there's no reason to bash Biden other than his age, because he's been one of the most effective Democratic presidents we've had in modern times. So there's really nothing for Wes Moore or Gavin Newsom to say other than to, come at him from an age standpoint. And that would not be very wise. Before we run out of time, Chris, go ahead, weigh in on this Kamala Harris thing. It's driving me crazy. She's getting all this great press. Now all of a sudden there's been a New York Times hit piece by a Black journalist. This is a white journalist in the Wall Street Journal. Atlantic had a piece. There have been 3 or 4 pretty major hit pieces out on her. What's fueling this?
Sexism, when it comes right down to it. The fact that whenever a woman gets too big or gets too ambitious, they always come at her. We saw a prime example of that in the whole 2016 campaign. And it is sad. Women have the right to be president of the United States in this country. Full stop. Nothing else to even go forward with that. She is a powerful woman. She is an ambitious woman. She's doing the job of being a vice president. And I guarantee you, most of the people, whenever they bring up an article of, oh, she's not doing this, not doing that, tell me any 10 things that a former vice president has actually done. The job of the vice president is to break ties and make sure the president of the United States is alive so they don't have to become president.
You're so right. But Kenny, I'm going to give you the last word on this, because you're right. And you're right about Biden. We're right about Biden and Harris. But there still is this perception issue. And I think that's what Kennedy is getting at, is that we could all be right, but if people don't feel like it's right, then we could be right and lose. So I think that's what you're saying, right, Kennedy?
Yeah, no, it is, exactly. And that's what I think too in the Democratic Party in general. Like, most of us agree on a lot of these policies. It's just who's going to be there and how do they represent you, and do you feel connected to them? I think that's a key part that's been missing in terms of messaging in the Democratic Party for a really long time, especially with young voters of color, et cetera. And I think Vice President Kamala Harris, she has been doing a good job, but people don't feel her. People don't see her. I feel like I think she can lead, and I think she is very qualified to do that. But I think people need to just feel her more, and that piece is missing, and that connectedness is missing.
Well, just for the record, she had this college tour, and they had folks lined up around blocks and blocks to see her on these different college campuses. So I don't know what else she can do. She's doing the greatest job, I think, of anyone. Whenever you're the first, people are going to come at you even more viciously. But you have a good point. And so I don't want to be dismissive of your point, because no matter how much us in the inside of the Beltway know it's the right thing to do, if people who we depend on to vote for the Democratic Party aren't feeling either of our candidates, that means we have work to do. We are out of time. Thank you guys so much. I'm a lot smarter when I spend it with you, Christopher Walton and Kennedy Sessions. In hour 2, we're going to talk about land or religion in the Israeli-Palestinian crisis. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk